Today, we're diving into a truly foundational work by the 19th century French economist Friedrich Bastiat. It's called Economic Harmonies, and in it, he tackles one of the biggest, most fundamental questions you can ask about how society works. And here's the question he puts right at the center of everything. He says, look, all of social science, really, it all hinges on the answer to this one thing. Are we, as human beings, naturally at odds with each other? Are our interests always clashing? Or is there another possibility? What if, when we're left to our own devices, our interests actually work together in a harmonious way? And why does this matter so much? Well, because your answer sends you down one of two completely different roads. I mean, it's a massive fork in the road for society. If you believe our interests are naturally harmonious, then the answer's pretty simple: liberty. Just get out of the way and let the system work. But if you believe our interests are naturally antagonistic, well, then the only solution is coercion. You have to force people into a system that works. Okay, so let's walk down that second path first. Let's explore this idea that our interests are naturally set against one another. From this viewpoint, the world is all about a fundamental trade-off. Bastiat explains that people who believe this see a really stark choice. You can have personal liberty, or you can have a harmonious, well-ordered society. But you can't have both. Nope. You've got to pick one and sacrifice the other. And if you look at the world through this lens, you see evidence of conflict everywhere. It's capital versus labor, right? Producers against consumers, the property owner versus the worker. To them, society isn't some big cooperative project. No way. It's a constant battleground. And if that's your starting point, that conflict is just natural, then the conclusion is kind of inescapable, isn't it? A natural, spontaneous, harmonious social order? Impossible. It can't just happen on its own. It has to be built. It has to be designed, constructed, and imposed on people by a central authority. But this is where things get really interesting, because Bastiat then turns his attention to the other path, the path of liberty. And he finds a huge, deeply disturbing problem right in the arguments of its own champions. He points out this incredible paradox. You have these brilliant economists, right? They're the biggest cheerleaders for freedom and liberty. But at the exact same time, their own theories paint a picture of a world that is just doomed. A world of inevitable injustice, poverty, and ruin. And this just didn't sit right with Bastiat. I mean, he's thinking, how can freedom be the answer if it leads straight to disaster? So let's look at his first big example. He takes on the hugely influential theory of David Ricardo. Now, Ricardo's theory of rent, it was grim. He basically argued that as the population grows, we have to start farming on worse and worse land. This makes food more expensive, which is great for the landowners. Their profits soar. But for everybody else, they're stuck working harder and harder for less and less food. And where does this process logically end? Well, it ends with inevitable runaway inequality. A society where the rich just keep getting richer and the poor are stuck going nowhere. And get this isn't because of some policy mistake. According to Ricardo, it's just a natural law of economics. Yikes! And if you thought that was bleak, just wait. Enter the even more famous theory from Thomas Malthus. Malthus's big idea was that population just grows way faster than our ability to grow food. It's a race we're basically destined to lose. And he said only two things could stop this runaway train. First, what he called moral restraint, which he wasn't too optimistic about. And the second check was, well, something much more horrifying. Things like poverty, war, disease, and famine. In his view, these aren't terrible tragedies we should try to avoid. No, they are necessary, inevitable checks on population. It's an absolutely chilling idea. So you see the crucial point here, right? If the greatest defenders of liberty are telling us that a free society naturally leads to Ricardo's inequality and Malthus's ruin, how on earth can you defend it? It's a devastating critique, and it sets the stage perfectly for Bastiat's radical answer. See, Bastiat believed both sides of this debate were just plain wrong because they'd all accepted a false premise. So he decided to reframe the entire conversation with a simple yet incredibly powerful idea. And this is his core thesis. He argued that those pessimistic economists were just fundamentally mistaken. The natural state of things is not conflict. He says that when individuals pursue their own legitimate interests, the result isn't chaos, it's a complex, beautiful and harmonious social order. Of course, the immediate objection is, look around. The world is filled with poverty, injustice, and pain. If the system is so harmonious, how do you explain all the bad stuff we see every single day? Bastiat's answer here is actually pretty profound. He says suffering isn't proof that the system is broken. It's a necessary part of a system built for free beings. Think about it. We're free, which means we're free to make mistakes. Those mistakes cause pain. But that pain, that suffering, serves a purpose. It's a feedback mechanism. It's a lesson that guides us back toward what works. So for Bastiat, the real source of chronic social problems isn't freedom. It's the opposite. The problem is when our own man-made institutions interfere with that natural feedback loop, preventing us from learning from our mistakes. And he was very specific about what these disruptions were. Things like government policies that weaken individual responsibility, or interfere with the natural link between labor and wages, or misdirect capital and manpower. And especially when the government moves way beyond its only legitimate job, which is to enforce justice. These, he argued, are the real sources of disharmony. And so, Bastiat's conclusion is stunningly simple. The path to harmony isn't to invent some new, complex, coercive system. It's simply to identify and remove all the artificial barriers that we've placed in the way of the natural, harmonious order. And that leaves us with a powerful question to think about, one that flips this entire debate right on its head. What if the poverty, the conflict, and the injustice we see all around us aren't the results of a free society failing, but are actually the results of our society not being nearly free enough?